Greetings, humans. You have entered the Command Zone, your destination for all aspects of Elder Dragon Highlander. Enjoy your stay.
Can't touch this. Can't touch this. Can't touch this. Can't touch this. Okay,
how long do we go for?
I don't know.
What else happens in that song?
He raps. It's a classic 90s feel good about yourself rap. Okay,
He wears cool pants.
Yeah, and yeah, he does have the coolest pants. I'm not even wearing pants. I got shorts on. I'm jealous. Today, if you know the connection, you know the connection because welcome, you're listening to the Command Zone podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Jimmy Wong.
How's it? It's Josh Lee Kwai.
Back in the saddle.
Back in the saddle together again.
We're talking about Warhammer, MC Hammer, 40K cards.
40,000, Jimmy.
Oh, yeah, 40,000, sure. Whatever.
Warhammer 40K Commander pre-constructed decks. They've arrived. They're out. You've probably seen the new game nights about it. They got a ton of spicy new cards. These decks are crazy because there's 40 new cards each.
So many. It's like the first days of Commander all over again.
Yeah, so it kind of feels like it's a whole set. We decided we're not going to do a full-on set review of every new legendary and every new card for this. What we're going to do in this episode is just kind of talk about our favorites from the set because we've got Infinity we've got to move on to, and then right away Brothers War is right around the corner. So yeah, we are not going to do full coverage like we have done for all the sets in the past, just because there's not time. And I think the Warhammer 40K, there's a lot of cool stuff, but there's not. We don't need to talk about 80 of the cards or something. I think 20 is going to probably do it.
Yeah, and of course the discussion always continues online. We talk about cards on Twitter, in the comments below as well, and there's lots to cover. So we're just going to talk about some of our favorites and, a place you might want to go if you want to pick up some of those favorites. Or if there's a card that you didn't even know existed until this episode, well, cardkingdom.com/command has got you covered. Card Kingdom is our sponsor for the show. By buying products from them, by using the affiliate link, you're also supporting Game Nights, Command Zone, all the stuff we do here at the office. And you're going to get the cards you need really quickly in great condition and with awesome customer service. One of the things we always hear about Card Kingdom is that if something is wrong, something goes awry with an order, they are very quick to fix it and to hear what has happened and help out. And that kind of service, it goes with a trusted name. And that's why we've been sponsored by Card Kingdom for so long.
Yeah, they really do go above and beyond. And the other really big thing I think about Card Kingdom that's like top of mind when somebody says the name Card Kingdom that I think of is shipping speed.
Yep.
They get you cards the fastest. If you know you're going to be playing, next Wednesday, Commander with your pals, and you've built a new deck online and got the list, if you order through Card Kingdom, they're going to get you the stuff faster than anybody else, and you'll have it in time for your Commander night or whatever. And of course, once you get the cards, you want to make sure they stay in really good condition. ULTRAPRO is the game accessories brand that Jimmy and I trust our own collections to. We want Eclipse sleeves. We want Mythic Collection deck boxes, Satin Towers, ULTRAPRO playmats. ULTRAPRO even makes wall scrolls to go in your game room. They make awesome Eclipse dice, actually, is kind of a newer thing. It's not super new. They've probably been doing it for about a year or so now.
I just started using their Planeswalker dice, too. Really.
Oh, yeah. They have the with the Planeswalker symbol. They look really sweet. Yeah, I love the Eclipse dice because they're super crisp and clear.
And we use them on game nights, right?
Yep. Great for if you do content or if you play over Spell Table, something like that. ULTRAPRO.com/command is our affiliate link for them. They have a direct-to-consumer e-commerce site now, which is great because if you can't find an item that ULTRAPRO makes at your LGS, well, you can probably find it on their online store, and they also have tons of discounts and sales all the time. ULTRAPRO.com/command. Check it out. You won't be sorry. All kinds of cool deals.
I just got 5 binders for a really great price. Going to upgrade that collection.
That's awesome. You're gonna organize that collection.
Yeah, I'm going to organize the collection into mana. I got now all my lands in one place. Okay, patreon.com/command zone is the last way to support the show. It's directly. We love our patrons. There are an immense amount of benefits, and the only way you can find out about them is by getting them and signing up at Patreon. We're not going to talk about all of them now. In fact, we're just going to shout out one lucky patron who gets a shout out every single episode. So this week's episode is dedicated to Robbie Strickland.
Robbie, you rock.
Robbie. Thanks, brother.
The way you worded that made it sound like Robbie gets a shout out every single episode.
He does. In my heart.
He should. Robbie should.
Yeah, he does.
We shout out a different random patron every single episode.
And Robbie. Okay, Moving on. Our favorite cards from Warhammer 40K, the pre-constructed sets. Yeah, 168 new cards total. That's
Crazy.
A whopper.
Crazy amount.
So, shall we just dive in?
Yeah, so Jimmy and I just sort of picked our favorites that we're going to talk about from the set. Could be legendary creatures, could go in your 99. We're going to go through them in no particular order as our tablet rings here. we're just going to go through the stuff we thought looked cool and sort of what we see with each of the cards. And yeah, let's just start, Jimmy.
Let's start
Which
off
one's yours?
with Vexillus Pretor. Praetor, I thought that was a magic thing. Turns out it's a multiple thing.
Yeah.
3 and a white for a 3/4 Custodes Warrior with Flash and Vigilance and an ability called Aegis of the Empire. Commanders you control have protection from everything. That's it. That's the card. It is granting the Progenitus effect of protection from everything to your commander at instant speed 4 mana.
Pretty great.
Yeah.
Protection from everything is useful in a lot of ways, too, because protection is different than hexproof.
Yep. Yeah.
I mean, it also can be bad, I suppose, if you want to, like, put an aura on you.
Yeah, that's right. A way to remember that I learned online is by the word det, D-E-B-T, so you cannot be damaged or enchanted/equipped or blocked or targeted. So if you play Light Paws, do not play Vexillus Pretor.
That would be bad.
Yeah, it would be very, very,
and the auras
very
that are
bad.
on there now will fall off if you've given protection from the color of those auras.
Yep. Yeah, it'll just pop on and then shed everything else the moment that it gets those protections. So you don't want that to happen.
But the good side of this is that basically it's very hard for your opponents to interact with your commander now in any way. You can block anything coming at you. You won't take damage from that creature. So if they got a 10/10 and your commander's a 2/2, as long as it doesn't have trample, you're just going to block that for free because you'll have protection from whatever colors they are, everything.
Yeah, and your commander will be able to attack through pretty much everything. So
yeah, they can't even block it, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, think about like any of the swords. It gives protection, and so often it's like swing at you, and it's like, uh-oh, nothing on my board can block that.
Yeah.
I think any creature-based decks, especially combat-based decks, because it's really important for your commander to stay alive for more than one turn in those decks. Like Light Paws can't do bad example, but a creature that wants to kill you has to do so over multiple combat steps.
Yep. I also think this is going to be really good in sort of Boros decks because the way red usually wipes the board is damage-based.
Yeah, totally.
So a regular board wipe, like Wrath of God, will still kill a creature that has protection from everything because it just prevents it from being targeted or taking damage. It doesn't prevent it from being destroyed. But Blasphemous Act doesn't destroy creatures. It deals 13 damage to them, which usually destroys them because that's enough damage to, more than their toughness. But because protection works against damage, a Blasphemous Act, an Earthquake, something like that, a Pyrohemia.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, that will be totally prevented. So if your deck has those cards, this is a way to protect your commander from that. Now, the Pretor will die, but at least the Blasphemous Act will go off and your commander will still be around afterwards.
Yeah, I mean, lots of decks want that to be the case here. And so I think we see a lot of this now, which is like the 4 mana slot is getting powered up by flash spells, enchantments, all that stuff. This reminds me very much of a Chroma's Will, which is a mainstay in, again, creature-based decks and commander-based decks. So I expect this card to see a lot of use. And it's just one of those ones where if your commander is white and a creature, and it's not just about one big flashy turn, if you need to stay alive, consider Vexillus Pretor.
I think it's sort of also, the good thing about it is it also can work on offense. So you can be in a situation where your commander's out, your opponent's, stabilized at like low life 5, 6, 7, and your commander could hit, if it hits them, could take them out of the game, but they got blockers or ways to stop that attack, and you go boom, Vexillus Pretor, and all of a sudden they can't block you now because you got protection from those creatures.
Yeah, or you really need a combat damage trigger, right?
Yep.
So lots of commanders need that. So I again, it's like, look for the 4 mana slot. This is going to be, I think, one of those ones that index these days, you get to choose like 3 to 4 max before it starts to get clunky, and then you draw too many 4-drops in your opening hand or whatever it is.
Yeah. Well, you mean 3 to 4 max 4-drops in the whole deck?
Yeah, sometimes.
Wow.
I've realized that as, we're in this weird world where the 2 slot has become this thing that powers on decks that go off, right?
Yeah.
With that in mind, that I think in order to balance it, we have to print a lot more cards that are higher up, that are really big and higher in impact. So maybe more of these 4-drops and we'll play more 4-drops. But as a result, I think everything's just getting like squeezed around the edges, and it's really hard to make cuts now.
Really getting pushed down towards the low end of the CMC.
Yeah.
I will say that one of the downsides of this card is probably holding up 4 mana for protection is a lot these days.
It's like an awkward spot to be in. Right?
Yeah, because it usually means you can't do anything on your turn to hold up that 4 mana. So, yeah, it'll be interesting.
Yeah.
All right. The next one up is mine. I chose Shadow in the Warp. It is 1, a red and a green for an enchantment. It says the first creature spell you cast each turn costs 2 less to cast.
Oh.
And then it says, whenever an opponent casts their first non-creature spell each turn, Shadow in the Warp deals 2 damage to that player.
Now you're talking.
Yeah, this just seems very efficient. I don't know that there's going to be a lot of like in-depth combo-y synergy strategies to talk about. If you have 25 plus creatures in your deck, though, this is probably going to net you 8-10 mana over the course of the game.
Totally.
If you play it on turn 3, I suppose it's a lot worse if you play it turn 6, 7, 8.
But even then, you play it and then the creature you spell, but you play after because it's only 3 mana. It's going to be reduced. So you could have a turn where you're playing a 3-drop of this, and then it's now a 2-drop or whatever. So you have 5 mana spent. Fill in that mana curve really nicely.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I didn't really think about it that way, but yeah, it maybe is better later than I thought because if it does on the same turn that you cast it, because this is a non-creature spell, so if the next spell you cast is a creature spell, it will be the first creature you cast that turn.
Yeah.
Then it kind of only costs 1 mana in that instance, right?
Yeah, that's right, because it goes from 3 down to 2. You lose a color along the way, but that's so
pretty good.
Yeah, it buys it back quickly. I like this a lot. It feels like Soul Ring to me in creature-based decks.
Yeah, and the damage that it's going to cause to your opponents is probably going to add up.
Totly.
This could if you play this on turn 3, it's not crazy to think this will do 20 plus damage over the course of the game.
Have you ever played against a combo console allocation deck?
You just take a lot of damage.
You're like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize I could do this to myself.
Yeah, and I think it gets even better too if you are able to cast your creatures at flash speed, because now that discounts. Yeah, it says the first creature spell you cast each turn, not each of your turns, costs 2 less to cast. So if you have Vidalcanori, Leyline of Anticipation, you have one of the other...
A lot of the werewolves and stuff have flash on them, right?
Yep, and there's what's the green creature she gives your creatures flash?
Vivian?
There's a bunch of ways to give creatures flash.
Oh, yeah. Yeva, Nature's Herald, and then one of the Vivians, I believe, as well, allows you to do it, yeah.
So if you have those cards in your deck and you're planning to cast your creatures at flash speed anyway, then all of a sudden getting extra 2 mana, it might come back to your turn and you've gotten 4 or 6 mana out of this thing. That's insane.
Yeah, that's a lot.
That's like tapping your Soul Ring 3 times over the course of 1 turn.
Yeah, you're also definitely going to want to run every Beast Whisperer type creature in that deck, which you probably already do. So Shadow the Warp seems like just a great spell. The fact that it does 2 very different things is what stands out to me, because normally the card will tie to itself, right?
Yeah.
But this one is just saying, hey, all your stuff's cheaper, and I'm just going to hit everyone a bunch.
I'm just going to deal a bunch of damage,
Yeah, sounds pretty good to me.
All right. What's the next one?
All right, the next one is one that I chose. And can we spoil that this is one of the cards that appears on the future episode of Extra Turns? Because we just did.
I guess we can. Without any other information.
Yeah, you will see this card soon on Extra Turns-ish. There we go. We'll get around.
Soonish.
I should be a lawyer. All right, this is Celestine the Living Saint. 4 and a white for a 3/4 flying lifelink human warrior legendary creature. Healing Tears. At the beginning of your end step, return target creature card with mana value X or less from your graveyard to the battlefield, where X is the amount of life you've gained this turn. There we go.
So life gain, big payoff, and recursion.
Yeah, it seems like the kind of mono-white commander I would look for if I wanted to build something, I think, in the colors.
Yeah, pretty cool.
You get to buy a lot of stuff back here. She has lifelink as well, so she'll hit for 3. Lifelink. Flying, probably gonna be hard to block.
So at least you get a 3 CMC thing back.
Yeah, and then I think a lot of it too is like mono white doesn't have a bunch of ways to discard cards, so you're gonna want to play Key to the City. A card that I learned about recently that I haven't thought about is Anvil of Bogarden. Each player skips their discard step, but during each player's draw phase, they draw an additional card and then chooses and discard a card. I also found Peace of Mind. 1 in the white for an enchantment. To pay a white, discard a card, you gain 3 life. Seems like the perfect card for this deck, because once you get more than 3 life, then white can bring back
huge stuff.
Avacyn, Angel of Hope. Is it that crazy to think you can gain 8 life in the turn? Swing with like 3 lifelink creatures using effect.
I don't think it's that hard for white to gain that much life. I think the hard part is getting Avacyn into your graveyard, like you said.
Yeah, so just discarding it is a nice way to go about it. Because mono white does not give you many options, right?
I really like the Celestine triggers on your end step too. So the turn you play her, if you had some other lifelink life gain pieces, you could get something back right away if you've managed to put something into the bin. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's cool. I think the end step thing is really important because the Shanna Purifying Blade deck that I played definitely would have liked Celestine, because Shanna says at the beginning of your end step, you can pay X and then you can, draw that many cards. Yeah.
Equal to the life gain.
But it's an end step trigger, which is good. So you want cards that actually gain you life in the beginning of your turn or not. There's a couple cards out there I was looking at that was like at your end step, gain X life or whatever. Mm-hmm. So you want beginning stuff. If there's anyone out there that still plays Aloro, then this card seems really good in that deck as well.
Aloro used to be the number 1 EDH rec for years, most popular deck. And now you don't hear about Aloro much anymore. I bet Aloro is probably a little peeved about that.
Yeah.
I used to be on top.
Yeah. But he's always sitting behind the scenes, so can you really blame anyone but himself?
Yeah, get off your throne, man.
Yeah,
Do something.
stand up for once. And then Lathiel, the Bounteous Dawn, I thought Bounteous Dawn was really good too, because it's 2 green, white, 2/2 unicorn. At the beginning of each end step, if you gain life this turn, distribute up to that many +1/+1 counters among any number of other target creatures. So now it just escalates itself. Your life linkers get bigger, and then you're bringing Elesh Norn back to the battlefield. And Elesh Norn, I think, is particularly good because it's one of those cards that when you do it, obviously for very obvious reasons, but it's your end step, so you can't use the creature to attack, but Elesh Norn has an effect immediately, and it will hold the table down at least until your next turn.
All right, the next card from the 40k product we're going to talk about is Tomb Fortress.
Tomb Fortress.
It's a land. It enters the battlefield tapped. You can tap it for black mana, or you can pay 2 black, so 5 mana total. You pay that, you tap the Tomb Fortress and exile it. And it says mill 4 cards, then return a creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Activate only as a sorcery.
I don't know. I like Takenuma a lot, Abandoned Mire. It's a land from Kamigawa that you can channel it to discard it, and you mill 3 cards and return a creature or planeswalker card from your graveyard to your hand. But this one goes straight to the battlefield, so it feels very good in a mono black deck. I think the new Braids is quickly risen up to be one of the top played mono black commanders, a Risen Nightmare, and it's pretty good in this deck as well. It says, at the beginning of your end step, you may sacrifice an artifact, creature, enchantment, land, or planeswalker. If you do, each opponent may sacrifice a permanent that shares a card type with it. For each opponent that doesn't, that player loses 2 life and you draw a card. So you're drawing a bunch of cards, you're throwing stuff in your graveyard. And Tomb Fortress in a mono black deck that can pay the 5 mana easily, thumbs up.
Yeah, and anytime you can get a land that has like a real effect that you are probably going to want at some point in the game, it just replaces a swamp for the most part, right? So the cost is very low. This reminds me of Port of Karfell.
Oh, yeah.
Which is a land I do have in a few decks. And Karfell actually doesn't even say activate only as a sorcery, which is kind of a big thing.
Yeah, it's true.
I think that's a big downside on Tomb Fortress. But still, I find myself, it's Port of Karfell's Dimir only. So the fact that this goes in any deck with black makes it a lot more playable. But I've always liked Port of Karfell. So I think this effect being close to that just sort of says that, like, oh, this is going to be playable for sure.
Yeah, it's 5 mana. You definitely have to be able to create a lot of black. I think it works really well in mono black decks because, let's say it is turn 6 or 7 and you play Tomb Fortress, you still have your Cabal Coffers or whatever it is going on that allows you to tap for like 8 or 9.
And of all the colors, most black decks can create a lot of black because many of the best black cards like Necropotence or whatever require you to Bolas's Citadel, those type of cards. You probably already have some cards like that in the deck, in which case you're already equipped to make the right amount of the colors, right? So
yeah, and play more Dark Rituals, everyone. It's a really good card. You'd be surprised how many
It used to be
times.
not that playable, but now the format is so fast that, just getting something out early is more important than the card advantage.
And you've got cards like Tomb Fortress where the card advantage is so immense, and the milling on top of that. I think this works great, I think, in like a Chainer, Nightmare Adept deck, or any Chainer deck, really. And then Hogak, which cares a lot about the graveyard being filled with stuff.
All right. Next card is Biotransference. Interesting one, especially in black. 2 black, so 4 mana for an enchantment. It says creatures you control are artifacts in addition to their other types. The same is true for creature spells you control and creature cards you own that aren't on the battlefield.
Ooh.
And then whenever you cast an artifact spell, which means, remember, it applies to that top part. Whenever you cast an artifact spell, you lose 1 life and create a 2/2 black Necron Warrior artifact creature token.
Wow, are you kidding me? Any artifact spell you cast creates a 2/2 on top of all that. And by the way, everything you're casting is now an artifact.
Yeah, basically. This seems very powerful, and especially because there are a lot of like sort of loops you can get into, or artifacts often are very cheap, or they cost 0.
Yeah. Or you play Foundry Inspector and any number of the artifact reducers, and now you're casting for free. Cloud Shift Key is the other big one here.
Ethereum Sculptor, yeah.
Yeah.
Often artifact decks are trying to get to the point where they're casting their artifacts for free or almost free.
Yeah.
And then kind of looping around through like Mirror Retrievers and Scrap Trawlers and KCI, and that often bounces things or returns them from their graveyard to your hand, and you're recasting them. And as you're doing that, I mean, if you have that really going, you don't need this. But if you're going to do not infinite, but just a lot, then this will just be like, oh, you incidentally, while you're sort of spinning your wheels, create 12 2/2s. That's pretty good.
and also lose 12 life.
Yeah.
But the 2/2s are pretty good, and they're also artifacts. So if you have things to sack, Clan Ironworks seems just like the absolute all-star here too.
Yeah, this is definitely going to be a combo enabler, because if I cast an artifact spell and it makes another artifact, and I have Clan Ironworks out or something like that, all of a sudden I can net mana in a situation where maybe otherwise I'd break even or lose mana.
Yeah.
With Nim Deathmantle and things like that, there's probably all kinds of craziness I'm sure there are with this card. And even
Nim Deathmantle, good point.
Yeah, and even if you're not doing that stuff, just the incidental value of the 2/2s is just going to be very good. If you have 25 artifacts in your deck, you're probably playing a card like this.
Yeah. And a lot of decks that play Reckless Fireweaver, anything that pings people when artifacts come into the battlefield. And there's a bunch of, Goblin Engineer, Goblin Welder type cards that want you to have extra artifacts lying around, and you need a sack outlet now. So everything, creature specifically, it's not like Mycosynth Lattice where everything becomes an artifact. So just creatures. But this has just combo potential written all over it.
Yeah. All right.
Which actually leads us directly into the next card. Segue. It's Ghost Arc. It's a 4-mana artifact vehicle, 3/3 with flying. What? You put a vehicle on here, Jeremy? That's right. Its ability is whenever Ghost Arc becomes crewed, each artifact creature card in your graveyard gains Unearth 3 until end of turn. And you can crew something by tapping a power of 2 of creatures between the creatures you control, or just 1. Okay. So this is busted, especially if you have a card like Biotransference out, because now everything, it says creature cards that aren't even on your battlefield or in the graveyard are artifacts. So Unearth, just to get the rules text out, you pay a cost, and it says return this card from your graveyard to the battlefield. It gains haste, exile it at the beginning of the next end step. If it would leave the battlefield, exile it instead of putting it anywhere else, and activate only as a sorcery. But typically Unearth costs are like 2 in a red, 2 in the black. Now they cost just 3 color or generic mana.
Well, plus Unearth costs are usually directly related to the card itself. So if it's like a 7/7 that creates another 7/7 when it enters the battlefield, that Unearth cost will be 5 and 2 red or something crazy. I just made that card up, by the way.
Yeah.
But this just says, no, it's just 3. And I don't care if that thing's a 9-drop or a 5-drop or a 2-drop.
Yeah, it just costs 3.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of huge, you've got your Phyrexian Triniform stuff out there. You've got all of the massive artifact creatures. Everything from 40k, Academy Manufacturer if you need to go off that turn. Alibu Ancient Witness, but like Phyrexian Metamorph, right? There's a lot of value you can pull out from your graveyard. Not to mention the cards from 40k that I really like. Emotech the Stormlord. We'll read it because it's new. 2 black. Whenever 1 or more artifact cards that leave your graveyard, create 2/2 black Necron Warrior artifact creature tokens. So that's huge. And then at the beginning of combat on your turn, another target artifact creature gets +2/+2 and gains menace. And then Arakir the Traveler, which I played in game nights, allows you to bring a artifact card back from your graveyard to the battlefield by paying life for its cost, and you want Arakir to attack.
Yeah, this artifact recursion thing, which is kind of something Black hasn't been great at before.
Yeah, it's only until the Necrons arrived that it became a part of them.
But it really can get you in some interesting loops where you can do some cool stuff for sure.
Yeah, I also like this new card, Lich Guard. It's 2 in the black. You pay 4 and sacrifice it. Return all legendary creature cards from your graveyard to your hand. So that seems like a mass recursion spell for those like Legendary Matters decks.
Which there's a lot of now.
Yep. And if you saw Game Nights, you will know that this card was comboed with Convergence of Dominion, which is a 3-drop. And it says, as long as you control your commander, activate abilities of cards in your graveyard cost 2 less to activate. This effect can't reduce the mana to less than 1.
So now it's Unearth 1 for all your artifacts?
Every single artifact creature. And yeah, you can just, at that point, if you milled yourself with, again, you can see all the synergy here are from the mono black Necron deck. Mill yourself, bring all that stuff back for 1 mana apiece. Whew.
Yeah, don't forget Unearth gives haste, so you can do things like Steel Hellkite out of nowhere.
Oh, yeah.
Those types of plays can really like catch you up or set back the archenemy at the table at the time. And so, if you can fill your graveyard with artifact creatures, Blight Steals out of nowhere can win games. Oh, I guess they can't be in the graveyard, can they?
Yeah, Blight for that very reason.
Yeah.
Another thing about Ghost Arc is that it only does it every time it's crewed. It gives the ability Unearth. So if you Unearth Stitcher Supplier and it comes in and mills you for 3, then you actually need to crew it again by tapping two creatures with 2 power or whatever. And then,
so that the newly milled cards now unearth?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
And if you somehow find a way to get it back into the graveyard, which I don't think you can, I don't think you can unearth it again.
Yeah, because if you unearth it, if it's going to leave the battlefield, it gets exiled.
It gets exiled, yeah.
So, yeah.
And also, Zerda the Dawnwaker's effect will reduce the cost of it. So it's the same thing, similar to Convergence of Dominion.
Abilities you activate that aren't mana abilities cost 2. Oh, yeah, it just doesn't care what it is, just
Doesn't
abilities.
care what it is, yeah. Abilities anywhere.
That's very cool. All right, we are about to move on to the rest of the cards remaining from 40K that are our favorites, but I just realized we have to take a quick break first and hear a message from our sponsors. We'll be right back.
Now, a word from our sponsor, BetterHelp.
Greetings, mortals. 'Tis I, Soren Markov, vampire, planeswalker, and international superstar. I know from the tabloids, it looks like I always have my unlife perfectly together, but the truth is that not so long ago, I felt stuck, creatively, emotionally, and also, I was literally stuck in a big rock. It was a whole thing. But then I turned to BetterHelp and was matched with a therapist who gave me the support I needed to change my mindset. Before, I was just brooding and fixated on my problems, but through therapy, I was able to train my brain to go into problem-solving mode. I learned to craft my own solutions to my predicament and chew my way out of that rock. And I will tell you, it felt great, though it tasted awful. So, if you're thinking of giving therapy a try, BetterHelp is a great and affordable option. Plus, it's entirely online. Now I feel emotionally prepared for anything, and the only rock I'm stuck in is rock and roll.
When you want to be a better problem solver, therapy can get you there. Visit betterhelp.com/commandzone today to get 10% off your first month. That's BETTERHELP.com/commandzone.
I'm Felicia Day, and I'm the host of the official The Lord of the Rings of Power podcast. In every episode, I'm going backstage for an all-access look at what it took to bring Middle-earth to life. I'll even have the first full breakdown of the incredible season finale with the series showrunners, J.D. Payne and Patrick McKay. I will be sharing juicy behind-the-scenes stories and processing all the holy crap moments with the members of the cast and crew.
Numenor has got to be the most amazing thing ever, and we wanted it to just be the greatest kingdom of men that ever existed.
The elves are arrogant and vain. They're not beyond being corrupted.
Can I just say, watching Owen Arthur eat in his full regalia is the most hilarious thing.
So if you want to deep dive into every episode, watch The Rings of Power on Prime Video and listen to all 8 episodes of the official The Lord of the Rings of Power podcast for free on Amazon Music. Download the Amazon Music app now.
Welcome, slumbering fools, to the dream world, where I, Ashiok Nightmare Muse, can give you any nightmare I wish. And my favorite, you're speaking in front of a class and realize you're in your underwear. The shame. Of course, if you're wearing MeUndies, that nightmare may be a dream come true, especially with MeUndies' latest Halloween collection. I warn you, they are scary. Scary soft. So don't miss their limited edition prints like Jack Attack or Spell It Out. Available in undies, socks, bralettes, and more. And everything is made with the frighteningly comfortable micromodal fabric. Plus, if you slept on your Halloween shopping and need a last-minute costume, you can transform into a spooky skeleton with their Lazy Bones loungewear set. Match with your boo or an animal familiar in sizes from extra small to 4XL to make it your softest Halloween ever.
The scary soft hype is real, everyone. If you're not impressed with MeUndies, your first pair is on us. That's a promise. To get 20% off your first order and free standard shipping on U.S. orders, go to MeUndies.com/command. That's MeUndies.com/command.
All right, we're back with the most toxic card in 40K. It's Toxicrene.
This card might be toxic.
Yeah, it might be.
That's on our little outline sheet.
Yeah. It's a party.
That's a pun, everybody.
Aha! It's barely a pun. It's barely a pun. I wonder if the person that invented Toxicrene went like, yeah, I just put a couple of words at the end of toxic. It's all right. It's a couple of letters.
All right. Toxicrene is 3 and a green for a 2/4 Tyranid. It has reach and death touch. And it says all lands have tap, add 1 mana of any color, and lose all other abilities. So all lands tap for all colors, but that's all they do.
That's all they do.
That's interesting. It's hard for me to picture the outcome of this. if, is that going to hurt me or help me? Do I usually play more lands that do stuff than other people or fewer?
Yeah, and even if you don't play them at all, then it's great for you. If you're just playing, but all your lands are Chromatic Lantern, basically.
Yeah.
But I've seen Reliquary Towers out there, strip mines that now have to get used, Field of the Deads that go out of control. So I think there are a lot of interesting lands out there. Bounce lands get really bad.
Yeah.
Because you play it and you return the land, and unfortunately
they would lose that ability.
Yeah, so it's just but the bounce land, it should be tapping for 2, but it only taps for 1 now.
Right, true. But it just comes in as a normal land, so it's not that bad.
Yeah. But when you play it earlier in the game, I'm saying, you kind of lose a little bit of tempo there.
Because you lost the tempo already. And that's a good point.
It's really bad if you have like a Lotus Field.
Because you already had to sack the lands.
Yeah, when there's about you sack 2 lands.
Ooh, that's brutal.
Yeah. And I don't know, have you ever lost to a Blinkmoth Nexus?
Yes, definitely.
So I don't know what deck actually really wants to play this that badly.
Are you looking at it more from the aspect of it shuts off lands, or from the fact that it solves any color problems? Because
it definitely does that, but it also hurts yourself. So if you're like a 5-color deck that happens to have a couple of really important utility lands, like a Glacial Fortress or whatever, well, not Glacial Fortress, Glacial Chasm, then this card probably not so great.
But I would say usually 5-color decks have less utility lands because they can't afford them.
Totally.
Whereas monocolored and dual colored decks, this hurts monocolored decks quite a bit.
Totally.
Because in general, you can have a lot more utility lands, because if you only need red mana, well, you don't need to run 35 mountains.
You could almost go half-half.
You can be 18, and then you can run a lot more utility lands because you're not worried you're going to have red.
Yeah.
But then you get this ability where all of them tap for any color, but you really only need one color. So that part didn't help you. Yeah, exactly. So I think it probably hurts mono decks the most.
Yeah, I agree with that. That makes a lot of sense. They're the least reliant on having different colors of mana, and this will help out any decks that are 3 colors plus.
But that kind of asks the question, are you worried about monocolored decks to the point that you want to put a card that's good against them? Right? Monocolored decks, I'd say in general are already at a disadvantage. So I don't know that I need a card that puts them at a disadvantage. I think I would really just be worried about my own color fixing, and that's why I'm playing this card.
Yeah, it could just be incidental that it turns off other things. I like this as just a general, kind of balances the table out a little bit. And it's on a creature that, again, you're trying to do, right? It does 2 things that kind of are opposite in weird ways, but it's good if you're trying to, for instance, just fix your colors, and it's great if you're turning off your friend's Guy's Cradle, or that there's always some utility lands that keep popping up and keep hurting you. Your Karnfell, Caves of Karnfell, or whatever, or Maze of Ith.
Yeah, it definitely turns off some stuff that you might worry about. Kessel Wolf Run, those kind of things. Guy's Cradle for sure. Tabernacle. If you those are expensive cards, very expensive cards. And if you happen to be in a play group where somebody has cards like that, our play group is like this sometimes because, yes, I own a Guy's Cradle.
Well, that's why I play Strip Mine, right?
Yeah, but I don't own a Tabernacle, but some, Craig does probably. Some people do. I know I've played against it. And so, play your strip nines and stuff to get rid of that. But this is another way that maybe if you're a little more budget, you can catch up, because dual lands become a lot worse.
Yeah.
Things like that. So it's okay, fine, play your fancy lands, but
dual lands still tap for anything.
Me up.
Yeah, it catches me up, and it definitely turns off tricky stuff.
Yeah.
Maze of Ith I've found to be a very pain in the butt card sometimes.
Yeah, a lot of decks have a real problem beating Maze of Ith,
which is fun.
All right.
Next up, it is Magnus the Red. It's a new commander potential here. A lot of people have been talking about this. Magnus did nothing wrong.
Do you want to spoil where they might see Magnus the Red?
Yeah, in an Extra Turns episode, upcoming soonish.
The one with Celestine as well.
Yeah, the one with Celestine as well. Maybe
who do
there's
you think Jimmy's playing between Celestine and Magnus the Red?
I wonder why I chose this
guess
card.
Which one Jimmy might be playing.
Yeah.
You are contractually obligated to play this card.
I'm so glad when the email gets sent out. It's hey, everyone, choose your commanders. They're going to brew around it. I'm like, oh man, I'm glad I caught this email instantly, because if someone else took the card, there'd be a problem.
Yeah, that's true. I think we would have to be hey,
yeah.
I think you're going to let Jimmy play that one. Yeah.
Well, Magnus the Red, unfortunately, is not mono red. Fortunately, actually, because it makes him better. It's 3, a blue, and a red for a 4/5 legendary creature, Daemon Primarch. It has flying and 2 abilities. The first one says instant and sorcery spells you cast cost 1 less to cast for each creature token you control.
Okay.
Holy moly.
That seems crazy.
And then whenever Magnus deals combat damage to a player, create a 3/3 red spawn creature token. So it's all the parts of the card on the card. You got everything you need. Magnus attacking and hitting someone will give you that 3/3, and then it's going to reduce instances of sorceries by 1 for each creature token you control.
And the interesting thing is there are a bunch of instants and sorceries that they themselves create tokens.
Yes.
Which will then reduce the cost of the instants and sorceries that create more tokens till eventually mana's not a problem for you.
Yeah. So colored mana is the only problem because a lot of big X spells you might be thinking have like it's a X red, red, red or blue, blue X, you know.
Still, that doesn't seem like much of a hurdle.
No, not a huge hurdle, which is great. So cards like Magnus is a 5-drop, and you don't have natural great ramp, land-based ramp in blue-red, so you're playing maybe turn 3 or 4. You want to get some cards out before that.
3. That's ambitious.
Three's ambitious. You need a Soul Ring for 2 or 3.
Yeah.
But cards like Dance with Devils, Dragon Fodder, Hordling Outburst, they're all... Dance with Devils is an instant, but they all create token creatures, basically.
And they're instants and sorceries themselves, so they get reduced and help reduce the other stuff. And you can play that before you play Magnus, right?
Yeah, importantly. Because I think if you cast Magnus and go past turn, not looking great for you, because everyone will go, okay, kill Magnus instantly. Can't let that stick around.
But if you have 2 or 3 tokens and a couple mana up, now all of a sudden you might be able to protect it.
Yep.
You have something big up your sleeve because your cost is reduced.
Yeah,
That's
it's very, very powerful. A new card I keep talking about is Irenicus's Vile Duplication. It's 3 in the blue for a sorcerer. Create a token that's a copy of target creature you control, except it's got flying and isn't legendary if the original creature is legendary.
Oh, it's kind of like Spark Double.
Yes, great comparison because it makes a non-legendary copy of it.
Oh, so if you have 3 tokens out, let's say, and that itself is a token?
Yeah, it creates a token.
So it counts itself. So let's say you have that and 2 tokens out. And your commander, you're now reducing by 6.
Yeah, because you're doubling it up on the commander.
Oh my lord.
Or you might just have another creature out that you want to double and whatever, right? So like it's very, very good. And then once you get all that mana, time to cast some big spells. Woohoo!
Yeah, and X spells seem great because they're just going to fit to however much mana you've got. So if you've got 7 tokens, then fine. X is equal to 7 at the very least.
Yeah, exactly.
Kind of like Mizzix a little at that case.
Yeah. Mizzix, another very similar commander to this. So Gyrod's Belligerence is X red, red, deals X damage, divided as you choose amongst any number of target creatures, and when a creature damaged this way dies, you populate. So again, it's like, you're kind of like churning the engine even more because you're making another token or multiple. Release the Gremlins for X, X, and red. Destroy X target artifacts. Create X 2/2 red Gremlin creature tokens.
Oh wow, that's really good. Makes tokens and destroys stuff.
Keep it going.
Yep.
Rachel talked about this in a recent podcast episode, Stolen by the Fae. X blue blue. Return target creature with converted cost X to its hand. You create X 1/1 blue fairy creature tokens with flying.
I'm sensing a theme here.
This card is great.
Do something bad for 2 opponents. Make more tokens so
cast
that
even worse things.
Yeah. So the next thing I cast is even worse.
Yeah. Reality Spasm, X blue blue. You can tap X target permanents or untap X target permanents.
Oh, so you untap lands.
All
you
your
use
lands.
Your tokens basically. Yeah, that's sweet.
Yeah. And then Occult Epiphany, X in the blue. To draw X card, then discard X cards. You create a 1/1 for each card type among cards discarded this way. So land, artifact, creature, blah, blah. I really like Mascot Exhibition because you can just cast it for 0 at some point.
Yeah, anything that just fully on is
colorless.
Yeah. There's going to be... Well, it has to be an instant or sorcery that's colorless, but if it is,
Yeah, so the way that I built my deck, a little bit of a spoiler, is I took a lot of inspiration from Manson, actually, because his Kaikar deck is all about taking a creature token and turning it into a monster.
Oh, polymorphing?
Yeah, so you can polymorph a lot of the creatures.
Oh,
in this
interesting,
deck,
because
too.
you don't have a lot of actual creatures in the deck because you have Hordling Outbursts and stuff that...
make those creatures for you.
But if you polymorph, you can't hit them Hordling Outbursts, so you can safely put just like, a handful of really big, scary things in.
Yeah, Jin Cataxius, whatever massive red or blue creature you can think of.
You could actually probably build a deck in a way where there's only one creature that you're going to hit when you polymorph.
Yeah, totally.
It'd probably be a little less exciting because...
You know what's going to happen each time.
And you're not going to polymorph a second time because there's nothing.
I also find it really hard to not play Archmage Emeritus in this deck.
Oh, yeah, because you're just...
You'd be happy, though, to polymorph into that, for sure.
For sure, yeah.
But there's a new card called Chaos Mutation. There's Polymorph, Transmogrify, and there's Descent of the Dragons. Turns all your tokens into 4/4s, which is cool if you use it on your side of the board wipe. So, yeah, I think that's sort of how you win.
You could Broodiclad.
Yeah, Broodiclad seems very good in this deck, too.
Another win con.
Yep. So,
pretty dope.
Pretty fun stuff. It's a commander that I have to play, so I put a lot of time into thinking about how I wanted to play it.
No choice in there.
No
Usually
choice.
we choose where it's like, okay, everybody, first come, first served. Jimmy and I will go last. You pick what you want, and then you build it. And on this one, you're like, I'm Magnus the Red.
But right before they could even read the email, my reply was sitting in their inbox.
All right. Well, my legendary creature, not that this is the only legendary creature we're going to talk about, but the one that spoke to my heart is also an Izzet commander, Jimmy.
Oh, is it?
It's Gerson Star Kelomorph. 1, a blue, and a red for a 3/2 Tyrannid human. Before I read the text, there was a really sweet animation for this card on game nights. Can we play that for everybody real quick? So
Blown away.
3 mana, 3/2. I don't know how Evan did it because he made like the arms like move and they don't even exist there, and I don't know how it looks so good. Anyway, I don't know how they do that stuff anymore.
Real gamer hours.
Yeah.
Good job, Evan.
All right, so 3 mana, 3/2, has Ward 2, and says whenever another source you control deals exactly 1 damage to a permanent or player, Gerson Star deals 2 damage to that permanent or player.
Whoa.
So it's a little Torbranny where it's going to increase the damage dealt, but he only cares if you deal 1 damage at a time. If you deal more than that, he just guns in the holsters.
How many people tweeted at you when this card came out?
A lot. And they weren't wrong. Because Tim decks, of course, in my Tim deck, for sure this is going in there.
Prodigal Sorcerer.
Yeah, because it deals damage in increments of 1.
Yeah.
Very consistent. And what I do is untap Tim a bunch of times, but man, every time you do that, it's dealing 3 instead of 1. Wow.
Yeah. That seems like it would just, one, if it's the commander, then great. But if it wasn't, then this would be the best card in the deck. I feel like it amplifies it so much, that damage.
Yeah, and I don't think it's only useful for Tims. If there's just are a lot of good cards that deal damage in increments of 1. There's stuff like Pestilence, Pyrohemia.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
So, obviously...
Wow, 3 damage each. It would kill.
It will kill Gerson, so you have to have a way to keep him alive. But given that you can do that, give him indestructible or something.
Yeah.
That's big game. Impact Tremors is a card that sees a lot of play. So whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, it deals 1 damage to each opponent. Well, now that becomes 3 damage to each opponent. That's better than Perforos all of a sudden.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, Gerson says whenever another source, so it can be pretty much anything.
Grape Shot. We saw me use that recently.
Yeah. What was it, 9?
It was, I had 10 Grape Shots on the stack,
Jeez.
and Torwaku was making them all do 2 damage. Well, imagine with Gerson Star, they'd all do 3 damage.
Dang.
Yeah. Goblin Bombardment, a card that sees a lot of play. Sack a creature, deal 1 damage to any target. That becomes 3 damage.
Yeah, it goes great with the Impact Tremors deck.
Yep. Reckless Fireweaver.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
We just brought up recently. The new Defiler for red, Defiler of Instinct. There's an interesting thing with Stuffy Doll, and Truck and I were talking about it, trying to figure out. It feels like there should be a way for it to go infinite.
Oh, right. So Stuffy Doll can tap to deal 1 damage to itself.
So then Gerson Star...
And it's indestructible.
Yeah, so then Gerson... So it'll deal 1 to itself, which will deal 1 to an opponent. But then Gerson Star will deal 2 damage to Stuffy Doll, which will deal 2 to the opponent. But then it'll also see the 1 damage to Stuffy Doll dealt and deal 2 more damage, right? And we were trying to think of a way, well, how do we make the opponent taking damage deal 1 damage to Stuffy Doll so you can get
back and forth?
Yeah, like a feedback loop that kills them?
Maybe someone out there can figure that out, because that does seem like a very funny little math problem.
Yeah. Mana Barbs is a card that's near and dear to my heart.
Oh my gosh, 3 damage per land you tap?
Pretty much like if you play Mana Barbs and you have Gerson Star out,
game over.
It feels like the game is almost locked sort of right where it is. People can make very few moves before they'll die.
Yeah, totally. They have to get rid of it. Otherwise, they'll just tap 5 lands, take 15.
Yeah. Or you're just using Mana Rocks for the rest of the game and that's it.
Oh, right. Good point.
You can also give Gerson Star Death Touch, so Basilisk Collar. I talk about this kind of thing all the time.
Oh,
so
yeah,
that's but that turns 1 damage into lethal damage to any target. Giving Gerson Star Infect seems really good.
Yeesh.
Because now all of a sudden you deal Impact Tremors. You just have to play like 4 creatures. Everybody's dead. I guess 5. A lot of cool things. There was a question I had, Jimmy.
Yeah.
And I couldn't think of a card that fit the bill. But can you think of a card that prevents like 1 damage for your opponents
as a whole, or is it on a single?
Like if anything, it would have to say something like if a player
would take
or maybe it could say all damage reduced to players is reduced by 1 or something like that.
Okay.
So the goal here is if you could get Gerson down to himself dealing 1 damage.
Right.
Now he says when another source deals 1 damage, he'll deal 2 to it. But what you could do is clone him.
Okay.
You can use the Spark Double or what was that card?
Irenicus's Vile Duplication.
And now, if you could deal the damage and Gerson would deal 1 damage, then the other Gerson would see that and be like, cool, you dealt 1 damage, I'll deal 1 damage. And then the other Gerson was, cool, I'll deal 1 damage, cool, and then
just go off.
They say cool a lot.
Right. Yeah, the reason that Gerson is worded the way he is so that it doesn't trigger itself when he deals that damage. He
so
deals
if you had 2 of them and you could somehow reduce it, I don't know. Maybe that doesn't exist or you can't do that, but
it's a 7-card combo, unbeknownst to man.
Totally fair.
Yeah, totally fair, and I will complain if it happens to me. Yeah,
right.
Very cool card though. Do you think you're going to build something around it? Your Tim deck right now is a 5-color deck, right?
No, it's not. It's in fact my Tim deck right now is Teamer.
Oh, Teamer, that's right.
I've been thinking of adding white because of Drum Bellower, and in that case, I think I just go to 5-color.
Right.
I don't know. I just haven't done that yet. But Gerson can slide right in.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, it already works. So I'm definitely putting it in the current Tim deck.
Okay, cool. All right, this next one's a fun one. It is Blood for the Blood God.
Blood for the Blood God!
8 black, black, and red for an instant, and the spell costs 1 less to cast for each creature that died this turn. You discard your hand, then draw 8 cards. Blood for the Blood God deals 8 damage to each opponent, and then you exile the spell.
Wow. So very, very powerful if you can reliably cast it for, let's say, 4.
Yeah, because holding up between 3 to 5 mana is the most I think you should generally reasonably be doing to stay in the game and do what you need to.
Maybe if your deck has a lot of instants, you can hold it up, but you're not paying 11, obviously.
No.
But the fact that, like, if a board wipe happens, you can then go dome everybody for 8 and refill my hand. This is better than most wheel effects because you end up with 8 cards in hand at the end of this. So even just like Toxic Deluge, then this can do it.
Right.
But there's a lot of times in games, I think, where like I'm ahead on board, and if the boards stay how it is, I'm going to win. They have to basically wrath me for me to lose. And I can just kind of hold this being like, well, at least if they wrath me, I have a consolation prize of a lot of
fresh 8 cards. Yeah, 7 in the graveyard.
And everybody's down by 8, which, you know, that can matter. Or you could even Fury Storm this thing, maybe if you cast it for 3. That's 16 to everybody.
Jeez.
No, maybe more, 24 to everybody.
Yeah, the 8 damage seems really relevant, especially post-board wipe, because that's when players are the most able to get smacked by haste or something scary that's big. So you have now 8 cards, and you've done 8 damage to everyone, and you can recover, do something cool, hurt them all.
And in Aristocrats decks where you're just going to be sacking creatures, and you're probably going to have a turn where you sack the same creature.
You can do it yourself.
Yeah, or multiple creatures. But you get that, you know, you don't have to do 8. Even 4 or 5's pretty good.
Yeah.
And then a lot of times when you're doing that, it's Ashnod's Altar, it's Phyrexian Altar, it's things are creating mana.
Or Vespers here, and you just need a sack outlet. Yeah. I really like being able to do this at instant speed. That's the big one here.
Yeah.
Because if this was sorcery, this would be, barf.
So yeah, I just think this is a pretty good card, and we're probably going to see it a decent amount.
Yeah, and when it gets cast for like 3 or 4, you're gonna clutch your head in your hands and go, no, what?
It's so much value for so little mana.
Yeah, I really like that with Toxic Deluge if you're doing it on your turn, because it's a very cheap board wipe that can probably kill everything.
Yeah, and it only costs you 6 mana to do both. You might even have mana left over to even cast one of the 8 cards that you drew.
Because now you're at 8. Yeah. All right.
Let's talk next about what is clearly the most powerful card. Do you agree, in the entire 40K
set? It's just in the name.
It's funny. We were talking with Posty the other day.
This was really funny.
And he's like, I'm building, new 40K commander decks. And I was like, I know what card you're building. It's Trazyn the Infinite. And he's like, how did you know? I'm like, because it says Infinite right in the name.
It's right there. Yeah, it's very powerful. It's 4 black, black for a legendary artifact creature, Necron. That's a 4/6 with Death Touch. And as long as Trazyn is on the battlefield, it has all activated abilities of all artifact cards in your graveyard.
It's Necrotic Ooze.
For artifacts.
It should have said non-creature artifacts at least, I think. I think that's the mistake.
There's no mistake here. It's Trazyn the Infinite. Otherwise, it would be Trazyn the Near Infinite.
It would still be infinite. It would just be less infinite.
That's not how Infinity works. Yeah. It may be how Infinity works. We're still not quite sure. There's a lot of research, a lot of theorizing. Yeah, so what can you do, Josh, to win the game on the spot?
I mean, there's a million, and that's why it's called the Infinite, because it is very easy to go infinite with this card.
Totally.
Basalt Monolith with almost anything. Pilipala could just infinite untaps of itself, because remember, it has all of the Basalt Monolith abilities and all the Pilipala abilities. Pilipala has the untap ability on it.
Yep.
To untap it to make a mana of any color. So you end up floating a mana when you do that, but it costs you 2.
Because you're tapping 3 for Basalt and then paying 3 to untap it, or you pay 2 to untap it, so you get 1 extra,
Yeah, so you go tap it for 3 from Basalt, use 2 of that to untap it with Pilipala, and I now have 2 mana, because Pilipala made a mana when it untapped, and I had 1 left from Basalt Monolith.
Yeah.
Tap it for 3 now for Basalt, and do that again, and I have infinite mana, very easy. Anything that taps for 4 or more mana will go infinite with Basalt. And remember, you don't have to have these artifacts. You don't have to cast them. They're just sitting in your graveyard.
Yeah, very easy to get them there, especially in the mono black deck.
So another card this works with is Chromatic Ori.
Yeah, the Chromatic Ori, because it makes a whopping 5 mana. But the nice thing about Chromatic Ori is you never have to actually have it hit the battlefield, Josh. You can throw it to the graveyard where it belongs.
I don't want to talk about Chromatic Ori. Yeah, I don't want to have it in my deck at all.
Yeah, did you see that commercial where that card got played on you to end it? I don't know if y'all have seen this, but we also did the commercial with our good friend Post Malone where he played. It feels like a simulation now because it's come full circle, clearly. Chromatic Ori is very powerful.
It's because Posty and I have this thing where I think Chromatic Ori is, and you've all heard me talk about it, I think this card's garbage.
Yeah.
There are only very few decks where it's good. This is one of them. There's a few. There's a Teferi Chainveil deck, which I do have, that it is good in.
The truth arrived.
But I don't think this card is like good, like put it in very, very many decks, but he likes it a lot more than I do. So yeah, in that commercial, that's the reason he insisted, like, I want to play Chromatic Ori.
Yeah.
And, everybody from Wizards who's on the set was like, what, Chromatic Ori? And they're like, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why.
That's why Chromatic Ori gets played in that commercial about Friday Night Magic.
Because he was like, eat that, Josh. Everyone's going to think it's awesome now.
Yeah. And it is awesome for that reason. You got cards like Buried Alive in this deck. You have Entomb, all that stuff. Don't forget, it's creatures and non-creature artifacts.
Buried Alive's instant win in this deck. If anybody casts Buried Alive and they're playing Trazyn, you're going to lose unless you counter it. Because there are a million different cards that they can put in the graveyard that will combo.
Yeah.
It's very hard for them not to combo if they do this. It's Metal Worker with Pilipala will do it. Walking Ballista, your third card is your win condition. Phyrexian Devourer with Walking Ballista, you don't even need another card. That'll go infinite. There are just so many that we don't have to list them.
Yeah, because the card becomes the artifacts. He gains all the effects. Yeah, Necrotic Ooze, everyone.
Staff of Domination is another piece. You can't get it with Buried Alive. You can get it with Entomb. But because it says pay 1 to untap it, then that works again with Basalt Monolith and all the other stuff.
Very simple.
So this is going to be a scary deck. It's going to generally probably win the turn
it comes out.
You play Trazyn. Yeah,
because artifacts. It's so powerful. You can Dark Ritual out Trazyn early. You got so many ways to make tons of black mana. Yeah, you'll get.
And you have all the tutors, so you can just. Oh, you didn't draw Buried Alive? Well, Vampiric for it or Demonic for it. Or, it's very easy to get it. Yeah, so that I think if it would have said non-creature artifact, it would have been still combo
really
still
powerful.
Can do a lot, but the Buried Alives and stuff wouldn't work as well, and I think it would be a little bit better. Entomb would still work, though.
Yep.
Okay, those are our favorite cards. Not really Trazyn, we just felt we kind of had to talk about it because it's so powerful from the set, but I wanted to talk about 2 cards at the end of this, Jimmy. That I think are kind of being overrated. And by overrated, I mean, if you look online right now at the pre-sales, or I guess it's just the sales at the time you're watching, but for us, it still is pre-sales.
They're up there.
Yeah, it's coming out in like a day. These 2 cards are like 2 of the top cards. It's like price-wise. So somebody's buying them. They're expensive, and I don't understand why, so maybe you can explain it to me.
Sure, we'll see. I doubt it, because we tend to agree about these things. All right, first up is the Golden Throne. It's a 4-mana legendary artifact, and it says, if you would lose the game, instead exile the Golden Throne, and your life total becomes 1. And then it has tap, sacrifice a creature, add 3 mana in any combination of colors. So again, 2 very different things here. The first one says, hey, you're not going to die. You can exile this thing and your life total becomes 1. So it saves you, like Angel's Grace, a lot of those types of cards. And then the second one, you're just adding a bunch of mana to tap it and sacrifice a creature. So 3 mana.
Yeah, it's a conditional mana rock.
Yeah.
Whereas if you want mana, there are way better rocks. I mean, Thrawn Dynamo is just a card that exists.
Right.
And
4 mana tap for 3.
And you don't have to sack a creature to get that. I realize some decks do want to sacrifice creatures, but it's way better to just know that this is going to work with no help.
Yeah, it feels a little clunky to me because on turn 4, you want to be doing something cool and impactful. And unless your plan is specifically to sack creatures and then you want to use that mana for other stuff, I don't know. It seems really interesting. It's like you have to want to be able to sacrifice creatures, and you need to have creatures to sacrifice. Otherwise, this does nothing the turn you play it.
Yeah, I mean, you could be an Aristocrats deck that does want to sack creatures, but you play this on turn 4, and all you've got out is like a setup piece that you don't want to sacrifice.
Yeah.
In which case, this card, it does stone nothing. And it's not going to do anything for a little while. Maybe next turn you're going to play a creature that you want to sacrifice and it gains 3 mana, but you lose that's like the equivalent of it coming into play tapped or something.
Right.
Yeah, and I think that first ability is not even that good. You mentioned Angel's Grace.
Yeah.
If you compare it to Angel's Grace makes it so you can't lose the game for the rest of that turn.
Right.
This doesn't even say that. Just put your life total to 1. Let's imagine they killed you with poison.
Oh, I'm going to lose the game. I'm going to exile the Golden Throne. It's going to come back, and then I'm going to lose the game again.
Yeah, because I still have 10 poison. It didn't take any of the poison counters
in a
away.
death state, right.
Yeah, if they have something that's dealing persistent damage, they just do 1 more.
Right.
You know, my Tim deck is just like, cool.
Cool, thanks.
You go to 1, and now I tap it again. You know, if they have double strike or something, you could die on the first hit.
Yeah.
Go to 1, and then the second, regular combat damage comes through. It's just not an ironclad, you're going to live like some of these cards kind of are. I think this would get a lot better if it had kind of that clause.
Yeah, totally. It doesn't seem that great. Again, 4 mana, it becoming more and more crowded because there are a lot of powerful options here. Doesn't seem like something I would necessarily want to play, even in decks that want to sack creatures.
Yeah, I don't know why it's pre-selling for for so much. And the next card is a little bit similar, not the exact same. It's Scepter of Eternal Glory, another 4 mana legendary artifact. You can tap it to add 1 mana of any color. It's a 4 mana rock, don't forget. Or you can tap it to add 3 mana of any 1 color. Activate only if you control 3 or more lands with the same name.
Okay. Do decks need this? I don't think so.
Again, Thran Dynamo is a card that already exists. Look at this card and compare it to Thran Dynamo.
Yeah.
Thran Dynamo is just better, right?
The only thing that's different here is mana of any color.
Right.
So Golden Throne gives you mana in any combination of colors, and then Scepter says either it's just a 3 mana rock that taps for 1 mana of any color, but it's a 4 mana rock, or you can add 3 of one specific color.
But you have to have 3 lands of the same name.
So that means you're probably playing a mono or a dual color deck, because once you get to 3 colors, it's tough to sometimes get 3 mountains out or whatever.
3 islands is even tough. Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you're playing a dual color deck, in general, color is not a problem for you.
Right. So you don't even care about the fact that you're adding a specific color. Unless, again, you're mono black and you cast a difficult spell. But at that point, I would rather just have Thran Dynamo.
I think in almost all cases that you can reasonably consider, all scenarios, Thran Dynamo is going to be better than this card in almost all of them.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Which, by the way, Thran Dynamo, a card we've mentioned a lot in this overrated category, is not a card that people play very much because it doesn't meet the bar anymore, right?
Yeah.
You have to have some specific synergies for Thran Dynamo to even be good anymore. And so, yeah, these cards like pre-selling above $10, I think above $15 for a while. Maybe they're not like that anymore, but that is perplexing to me, and I think they're both being overrated. So my suggestion to everybody out there is I don't think these are good unless you have specific synergies.
You can untap them, right? There's a lot of Manifold Key, Voltaic Key. Those are better with these cards, but at the same time, they're still not great.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's interesting. Again, watch out for that 4-drop slot. It's getting a little hot in here.
Super crowded.
Yeah.
It's getting hot in here.
Yeah, it's getting. Guys, can you back off?
That's what we should have said.
It's a little smothering. It's all right. To the listener, what is your favorite card from the Warhammer precons? What do you think is the most powerful card from the set? Is it the Infinite Person?
Trazen?
Necron
Trazen?
thing? Yeah, or is
is.
it something else with more colors?
not.
Who knows? But how about this? Is there any card in the set that we didn't talk about that you would like to talk about? How about non-commander powerful cards, right? Because it could be not Mr. Infinite. Who knows?
Well, I mean, I think you still talk about the commanders. If you like Marnius Calgar or something, it was a cool card.
Marnius Calgar, very cool.
Yeah. Please list in the comments and list out some cool synergies you see. We couldn't cover every card. We're just not going to have time.
We'd fall so far behind the other cards that are just being dropped on us.
Yeah, so help us fill in the gaps there, and for everybody else, talk about the cool stuff you see for the new cards from Warhammer 40,000.
And 1,000 thanks for using our promo code at cardkingdom.com/command. We're back with Card Kingdom. We couldn't be happier. They have great shipping, great service, and they have a huge inventory. So many cards from the history of Magic. Sometimes you don't get all of them from a single store. Your LGS might be missing something. Card Kingdom has them all in one handy dandy place. They also will do great sales on things like they'll do like cool like pre-built decks to learn Magic from. So even if you're a novice player looking to get into the game, Card Kingdom is going to have something for you. So check it out, cardkingdom.com/command, and get the cards quickly because they have great service and it's very speedy.
Yeah, and of course, once you get your hands on those cards, you don't want anything to happen to them. You want to keep them in great condition. ULTRAPRO sponsors the show. They make the products that Jimmy and I trust our own collections to. Really do have all of my decks in ULTRAPRO sleeves of some kind. Eclipse, I used to say they're all in Eclipse sleeves, but I actually have some in now the printed sleeves because
nice with the
they
art.
have cool art. Yeah, and sometimes it's like, well, I've got this commander and I have this playmat and I want it all to match. So
I've got mine in the Game Night sleeves that we sold in Kickstarter exclusively, and those are made by ULTRAPRO, so we trust them.
And those have lasted a long time. I have my draft sleeves are the Game Night sleeves that we made by ULTRAPRO, and I've done 25 drafts or so with them, and they are still in just great shape. Every once in a while, you just wipe them off a little, they get a little dirty, but besides that, like they will protect your cards for a long, long time. So ULTRAPRO really makes really high quality stuff that's going to protect all of your game pieces. Go to ultrapro.com/command. That's the best place to buy all of your ULTRAPRO products besides your local game store.
Correct.
If you have an LGS that's near you, they're probably going to carry some amount of ULTRAPRO products. We definitely want you to support local businesses, but if you can't find it there, ultrapro.com/command is where you're definitely going to be able to find it because that's directly from ULTRAPRO.
Yeah, and that's what I did. I was like, I need to buy 6 binders.
Yeah.
And like my LGS
you want
has
them to match
2, and it's like, okay, cool. I'm just going to get them all from one place, and they happen to be, 50% off or whatever just today.
Yeah, ULTRAPRO on that website has a lot of discounts, which is cool.
All right. Big thanks.
Oh, no, we got to do the end step. Yeah.
Oh, that's right. End step. Haven't done one of these in a while.
Yeah, I've got one.
Okay, go for it.
It's time for the end step where we talk about something cool outside the world of Magic. We haven't done this a lot lately because in set reviews are so long, we tend not to do them.
Yeah.
I've got a cool show that I've been watching.
There's lots of them out right now.
Oh, there are so many. I won't talk about the obvious ones, but there's a show on Hulu and it's called Welcome to Wrexham. Have you heard about this show?
Oh, it's about the football league, the Premier League?
Yeah, so Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney
from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Yeah, and also from, what is it, Raven's Banquet or Mythic Quest?
Right, Mythic Quest, totally. With, Ashley Birch.
Yep.
Good friend of the show.
So Ryan and Rob teamed up to buy it's kind of like a minor league soccer. We're going to call it soccer in the United States.
Right,
football.
Not Premier League.
Yeah, football team in the UK, in Wales.
Uh-huh.
And they just decide they don't know a lot about football or soccer, but it's kind of like, they are wealthy people that decided that they probably can't afford a Premier League team or whatever, but and they're gonna buy it and try and fix it up and try and the way that soccer works in Europe is that you at the end of the season, if you are the best team, you move up into a better league,
right?
And if you're among the worst teams, you move down. And so they're gonna try and take this team and get it up to the Premier League or get it towards the Premier League or whatever.
Wow.
And it is just kind of like one of those wish fulfillment things where it looks really fun to do.
If you ever dreamed of owning a soccer team, now's your chance.
Or just a sports team in general. It's like I used to play baseball all-stars on the Nintendo, and it feels like they're kind of getting to do. And they're nice guys. At least for the show, they're doing a reality show around it. That's what this is about. They're helping. They're doing things for the community and other things and coming up.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it's great that they're making a reality show while they're doing it because it kind of does force them to do things like that. Do little.
Yeah, they can't just not really put effort into it. They got to actually try.
Right, and they have to be nice to the community, and they have to do things like upgrade the stadium and make it more, wheelchair accessible.
Oh,
and
cool.
Have little, events in the town, and they do little, they interview and follow around people who've been fans of the team for a while, and you really get to know, Wrexham is kind of a medium-sized town by American standards, but...
That's cute.
Yeah, but it's cool. You kind of get to know the people in the town, you get to know the players a little bit, and I've really enjoyed the show. It's still going on, as far as I know, at the time you're watching this. So Welcome to Wrexham, you can find it on Hulu.
Yeah, you cannot beat the PR capability of Ryan Reynolds.
Oh my gosh.
It's
crazy.
He king.
Yeah, TikTok, Twitter.
Did you see him, the Hugh Jackman thing?
Oh, yeah, so good.
My goodness, man.
What I've realized by watching the show, because we do a reality show, right? Game Nights is a reality show.
Yeah.
Is that Ryan Reynolds just has a team of writers walking around. There's clearly a team of writers walking with him at all times because there's no way the guy is that snappy at all times. There's somebody say this. There's got to be.
There's got to be.
I have to believe that.
Got to check the footage. Roll the tape.
Yeah.
All right, big thanks to our amazing team here at the command. Oh, wait, what's it called again? Welcome to
Wrexham.
Wrexham.
Hey, how'd you know that?
I saw a picture or something online, and
The one sheet just flashed in your mind
yeah,
just
I
now?
saw it.
That's
Ryan Reynolds.
impressive.
So, yeah, well, it also makes sense. I think I knew that town existed beforehand.
Okay.
All right, big thanks to our amazing team here at the Command Zone. Damon Lenz, Arthur Mellowcroft, Ashlyn Rose, Lady Danger, Manson Lung, Craig Blanchett, Josh Murphy, Jake Boss, Patrick Nan, Jordan Pridgeon, Sam Waldo, Grav Galati, Truck Ty, Jamie Block, Mitch Trafford, and Evan Limburger.
And special thanks to Jeffrey Palmer for the Living Card animations that begin our show. You can find him on Twitter at LivingCardsMTG.
All right, everyone, go conquer the known universe.
Yeah.
Warhammer cards.
In the grim darkness of right now, go buy these cards and wage war across the galaxy. Blood for the Blood God!
For the Imperium.
Thank you for your attention. For further inquiries, send an email to commandcast@rocketjump.com or ask us on Twitter at JFWong and at Josh Lee Kwai. See you later, alligator.
Greetings, humans.